So let's test our understanding of net present value. Here's a common type of problem that used to exist on the exam just a couple of years ago. I'm thinking that most of these challenging types of problems, like what I'm going to show you in a second, I'm doubting that these are still in the exam today. They've reduced the math, and I don't think they're emphasizing project selection the same. But again, this is a good challenge. This will test your understanding. So the problem goes like this. We're told that project A has a net present value of 1.5 million. The costs to do project A are $400,000, and we're going to receive this 1.5 million over a period of 4 years. On the other hand, we've got project B. Its net present value is 1.3 million. The costs to do project B are $150,000, and we're going to receive the 1.3 million over a total of 2 years. So then they ask which project should be selected here, and the answer is project A. Bigger is better. We just simply go with the net present value that's the higher amount. We don't analyze it further. The costs have already been subtracted in the net present value calculation. You don't have to subtract them a second time. That information is irrelevant. Also, the number of years over the product life cycle where we'll be receiving these revenue flows, these cash flows, that's already been factored into net present value too, so you don't have to factor those in. The years are irrelevant, just bigger is better. So now let's move on and talk about 3 more project selection techniques. And first up, let's talk about internal rate of return, or IRR. So this is just the interest rate the project's returning over time. So bigger is better. We're going to choose, or senior management is going to choose the project they think is going to return the higher interest rate. And for our purposes for the PMP exam, we're just going to assume that internal rate of return always recommends the same projects as net present value. So that's mostly true, but in the real world there are some counterexamples or some exceptions, but we're not going to worry about this now. Also, if you've worked on an MBA or if you've taken financial classes and gone through internal rate of return, you know there's a lot more complicated definition for internal rate of return, and you can't really compute this manually. You need a spreadsheet. You need a computer to compute what internal rate of return. It's the interest rate where the net present value becomes 0, and you can't come up with that in your head. But again, we're dumbing this down. We're just going to go with a much simpler definition that will work for our purposes. Again, it's the interest rate that the project's returning over time. That will work just fine. So payback period. So now smaller is better. So management not only cares how much money we're going to bring in over the operational lifespan and the product life cycle, they want to know how quickly we're bringing that money in, how quickly we're going to recover or recoup the upfront cost of doing the project. So now smaller is better for payback period. And last, we've got opportunity cost. So I think this is kind of a curious selection technique. I think the name of this, opportunity cost, doesn't really tell us what's going on. So the opportunity cost for a project is the value of the projects that we didn't choose. And we're hoping that we didn't pass up some very good appetizing opportunities. So we're actually hoping that the opportunity costs are low, that we didn't bypass or skip some appetizing projects. So again, now smaller is better. We said that net present value outweighs the other selection methods that we discussed. So it's more important. It outweighs internal rate of return, payback period, and opportunity costs. So real quickly, why would that be? Suppose we have these 4 projects. Project A has a net present value of 1.5 million. Project B has an internal rate of return of 12%. Project C has a payback period of 1 year, and project D has an opportunity cost of $50,000. So which project should we go with here? If you got this question on the exam, which project would you choose, or should senior management choose? And they're going to choose project A because it's the only project where we're guaranteed and we know we're going to actually make money. Just because we have an internal rate of return of 12% doesn't mean we're going to make much money. That could be 12% interest on basically nothing. So we might make nothing even though we have an internal rate of return of 12%. Payback period, we're going to recover our costs, the cost of doing the project in 1 year, and in many cases that could be very attractive, but it does not guarantee that going forward beyond that, you're going to make even more money. So it doesn't tell you what the long-term outlook is. And opportunity cost for project D, if the opportunity cost for 50,000, then perhaps we're thinking in our company, maybe we're a multi-million-dollar company, several $100 million company, and the fact that we bypassed a project of $50,000 and let that one go, maybe that's not that big of a worry, but that still doesn't tell us what we're bringing in, what the ROI is of our project out into operations. So given this bit of information here, the only project is project A where we know we're making some money. So we're going to go with that. This really isn't the real world. In the real world, the financial analysts and senior managers are using a combination of these different techniques for sure. In my company, it really didn't matter at all how much money we're going to bring in. We could have a very high net present value on a particular project, but we wouldn't choose that unless we knew also that the internal rate of return, the interest rate that project would be returning, was in line with what they expected for any of their investments. If it didn't make a certain minimum interest rate, the company wouldn't be going after that. So they're going to factor in internal rate of return with net present value, with payback period, and probably all these different things.